Why parents decided to host a barbecue, I guess that's the kind of thing old folks do. I declined because I really don't like my two sisters, their husbands, or their children. My wife and I are childless, and then my mom put pressure on my wife. To make a long story short, we ended up going anyway. When we arrived, there were about 20 people there, and my sisters and their husbands were already quite drunk. Honestly, my mom spent 100% of her time trying to control the nieces and nephews who were around 7 to 11 years old. My dad strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with a small fridge of beer. My wife and I chatted with a mishmash of people, ate some food, and had a frozen margarita. The sisters and their husbands took turns criticizing us for being late, not wearing swimsuits, and ruining the atmosphere. It was a typical suburban summer gathering. About 45 minutes in, two kids ran towards a neighbor who was standing by the pool and pushed her in. She tripped on the pool steps but didn't fall, so she was only half wet. She was clearly unhappy about it, but she didn't make a big fuss. She just went to her parents, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. My sisters and their husbands thought it was hilarious. After a while, I was standing a few feet away from the pool, chatting with someone. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw three kids running towards me at full speed. Clearly, I was next. However, outsmarting children isn't difficult. I just jumped out of the way at the last second. They ran straight into the pool. The other guests, including my wife, started laughing, but their mother, as I mentioned, was utterly plastered and absolutely terrified. Apparently, two of the kids couldn't swim, even though they were in their swimsuits. Since I wasn't wearing a swimsuit at the time, I stepped back from the pool and let others fish the kids out. The children were crying as if they had lost limbs. At that point, everything went haywire. The four inebriated parents were yelling at everyone, especially at me, for almost causing their children to drown, and because the two kids had been filming this prank with their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brothers-in-law tried to go into the pool to retrieve the phone, but his BMI and BAC prevented him from doing so. No one volunteered to help, which was not surprising, considering my sisters were still lashing out at everyone. I told my sisters that looking after the kids was their job, and if anything happened to the children, it was their responsibility, not mine. Both sides said some very harsh things. My wife and I left after another brother-in-law fell and started yelling at us. Now they say I should have let the kids knock me into the pool, make them happy, and ruin my phone. So I'll add that, of course, Dad never left the whirlpool. Some commenters realized that they were just kids, just playing around. They think it's acceptable and reflects more on their parents' issues rather than theirs. I just wish we hadn't gone. It was nice to see my parents and neighbors, but I really don't like my sisters or their husbands. They don't hide their jealousy of us, and being around them is just exhausting. More on why I'm not interested in some family members, it's more like oil and water. I was never close to my sister, who is 8 and 10 years older than me. And I don't have much in common with their husbands. They are good people, but I don't care about what's important to them, and vice versa. I know all four of them are a bit envious of our lifestyle. Both sisters are stay-at-home moms, both husbands earn a decent amount, one much more than me, but my wife and I have professional careers. We don't have children, and we are more responsible with money. As a result, we have more investments, etc. We don't have to drive cars full of kids' debris, and we go on 1 or 2 nice trips a year. This definitely makes the two sisters and their husbands unhappy, so we keep getting some trivial behavior from them. Overall, my wife and I don't enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip this gathering. It's not worth it for me, but my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. I hope next time your wife won't feel guilty and go, which might be a positive thing that came out of this. My wife is more tolerant and willing to forgive my siblings, but based on what she said on the way home, I think she's also had enough of them. Your dad sounds great. Yes, my dad is very laid back. He enjoys being around a crowd, used to be in sales, likes people to have fun, and definitely enjoys his retirement. He and 2 other people were just sitting there watching the drama. Mom is also cool, but this situation made her very uneasy. The kids are fine, they were watching TV inside when I left. I think they are 7, 9, 10, and 11 years old. It was the middle three who played kamikaze with me. I guess the 11-year-old instigated them, she's usually the leader. Your description of your parents hosting a barbecue is a bit strange, I had to shorten the post to fit the word limit. My parents are very sociable, like to entertain, they have a classic house suitable for hosting, and always come up with reasons to get people together. They wanted everyone to come to their house on July 4th, but one of my sisters and her family are on vacation, so this is a fake July 4th party, with flags, red, white, and blue decorations, barbecue, margarita machines, etc., promising to set off fireworks for the kids. My nieces and nephews are the only children there, and all the neighbors are as old as my parents. OOP was chosen as not being an asshole. Update the post, August 17, 2023, about a month later. First of all, my parents told me that my nieces and nephews are all good swimmers, and they often use the pool. The 7-year-old is still a beginner, but he likes the water. My sister just said they can't swim, and it doesn't look good. To be fair, the children are not allowed in the deep water area, and where they fell in is the deep water area. It was the two 10-year-olds and the 9-year-old who tried to push me into the pool. After we left the party ended on a rather sour note. My drunken brother-in-law fell while yelling at me and had to go to the emergency room to get his face stitched up. He drank too much to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very unhappy that night. My sister started a group chat and said some really disgusting things. Their husbands also made some comments. My wife and I blocked the four of them. My mom called me, and she was very angry about what they said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her because of their text messages. My parents insisted that my sisters come over without the kids the next day on Sunday to clarify some things and set some ground rules. Mom's words, the result was a regretful, if not very enthusiastic, apology from the siblings through my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called, her stern look made me not say what I wanted to say. I just told them thank you, we don't feel it's necessary to discuss further because I think it's settled. I unblocked them that night. I received a text message from one of my brothers-in-law, telling me that the phone cost $500 and asking when I would pay it to them. WTF. I replied that never. I took a screenshot of his message and forwarded it to my parents with a note saying that we have had enough of this nonsense. We will no longer have any contact with the sisters' spouses, nor will we be invited to any holidays or gatherings if they will be present. Then I blocked the sisters and their spouses again. At that time, things really escalated. Dad called them and gave them a severe scolding. They told me that the grandchildren are indefinitely unwelcome on his property because my mom often provides free babysitting services. This made them all uneasy. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them that my wife and I are actually the owners, not him and Mom. This completely scared them. Both of my sisters' families often use this place, including letting their friends go on weekend vacations. This is very unusual for my parents, and they are obviously fed up. Reference, I never wanted my sisters to know that we own this place. We bought this place for my parents, and they have always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet is just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A few days later, my sister and her husband came to our place, unannounced, to apologize in person. We went out to eat, and they left a note. One sister also connected for the foreseeable future, and we have not interacted for over 3 weeks now. I personally have had enough. They can hit a wall for all I care. Related comments, life is like, it's not even a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives more peaceful. I didn't realize how much ongoing low-level drama they created. They are not difficult, toxic people, they are not bad people, they are just exhausting and trivial. I personally don't care whether they use the weekend place or not. It's ours, technically, but we bought it for our parents. They control it and decide who uses it when. We pay all the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this explosion is that we now know how we will deal with the property when our parents get older. I was ready to take over and manage it, allocate weekends, maintenance, etc., but now we know we will just sell it, and if we want to go to the mountains, we will just rent an Airbnb. OOPS's parents, yes, my parents are naive, but they are very easygoing and go with the flow. I think they will soon relax all this, but that's their decision. We still won't attend any family activities in the foreseeable future. What makes my sisters feel bad is that they may be very worried that I will prevent them from using the cabin. I won't, it depends on mom and dad until they get old. This ends the area, but this property is much larger because it is at the end of the road. At least 3 houses with great views can be built there. They are not really sorry, they just want something from you. I completely agree, their apology is not sincere, and I have no plans to communicate with them in the near future. Regarding their use of the vacation house, that is actually my parents' decision. Yes, technically I own it and pay all the fees, but I bought it for them and gave them daily control. They are good people who have always wanted a family vacation spot, but they could never afford one themselves. I can afford it because of them, because I have been very fortunate financially, saving and investing like crazy, plus I got a big bonus in the year I sold my own house and moved in with my current wife. I don't care if my parents let my siblings use the house, but I have to admit, I am enjoying my sister's discomfort when they find out that I can afford this place and let them use it without ever mentioning it to them. Dad changed the lock code last week, and now only he, mom, my wife, and I have the code. Regarding mom babysitting, she told me that once a week, she and sometimes dad would go to each sister's house and spend the day with the kids. When school starts, she will pick up each child from school once a week, take them home, and spend the evening with them. She said that the 5 of them together stressed her out, but it was fine when they were apart. Both mom and dad told me that they don't plan to let my sisters and their families back to their house in the foreseeable future, and they are enjoying the peace. I guess they are tired of the old dynamics and used the pool party foolishness as an excuse to change the relationship. An interesting note is why the post was deleted from Ida. According to what I just read from other sub-forum moderators, violence is property damage. I still don't understand, the phone was destroyed, I guess it's a ridiculous update, August 26, 2023, 9 days after the previous post. Well, this has been an interesting few days. I thought it was big enough, but what happened this week is just a small dish compared to before. To make this make sense, I need to provide some financial background. My parents have never been good at saving money. I have been doing their taxes for many years, so I know their financial situation very well. Their house is paid off, they have very little debt, but they haven't saved much for retirement. Both of them have Social Security, dad has a decent pension, they have a little savings, but there is no treasure chest in the basement. I bought them their current car as a retirement gift so that they would have a nice car to drive. This is the first time in 20 years that they haven't had a rented car. My sisters are convinced that my parents have a lot of money and think that our parents will leave everything to them because I don't need more money. So they have never cared about saving money either. As a result, my eldest sister and her husband, who have 3 children, have been living beyond their means for a while and are now in financial trouble. They have maxed out their credit cards and are behind on car leases, to the point where one is about to be repossessed. He used to boast that he made X dollars a year, but it turned out to be half of that. She confessed all this to mom on Tuesday because they needed a loan, and it was a WTF moment for mom and dad. Over the past 3 years, she has not been staying in the vacation house as often as usual, but in fact, she rented it out once a month and put the money in her own pocket. We are talking about more than $2,000 for a weekend, at least $4,000 a week. Since she was cut off from using this place, she had to cancel a group. She is now worried that they will lose everything. My parents do not have the ability to give them a loan. My other sister knew she was renting out the place, but of course, never said anything. I suspect she did the same thing because once when I went up to put an ATV I had fixed, there was a family there claiming they were with my sister's family, and they had gone into town to run some errands. I just let it go at the time. I thought she had lent the house to some friends, but I kept thinking about it. I learned about all this through my parents, and they were very anxious. Mom is more anxious than dad, and he is mainly angry about it. I know dad feels betrayed and I imagine he is embarrassed that he can't help his daughter. He did reiterate that the girls will not be using the vacation house for a while as long as it's up to him. My parents let me know what happened because they think my sisters will now put full pressure on me next, and they were right. On Thursday, my sisters came to our house again, this time without their husbands, and waited outside the door until I got home. I had to choose between fighting with them in public, which would have caused a scene if I hadn't let them in, or letting them in. So I let them in. I listened to the eldest sister's story, the younger sister supported her, about why I need to let them use the mountain place immediately. They also said that I have always been a bad brother and need to step up and plan to pay for their children's college tuition because that's what families should do. I let them state their case, and then debunk them based on what my parents told me. Things escalated from there, with denials, crying, cursing, shouting, and so on. I swear my ears are still ringing. 2 days later, I won't lie, I said some really harsh things to them, but nothing that wasn't true. They finally left after about an hour. After that, I took a shower and lay down. When I got up, my wife came home, and the first thing she said was that she had to block more phone numbers because my sisters had called our phone with new numbers. My parents sent me a message yesterday, asking me to call them. I believe my sisters have told them some version of what happened, but I'm not ready to recount it yet. I'm usually a pretty energetic person, but this drama has exhausted me. Today I only had enough energy to drive to the vacation house and lock the entrance door with a padlock. I'm the only one with the key. I guess this is enough to ensure that my siblings don't touch this place again. They would rather die than walk 400 yards uphill to the house. The new update starts here, Update 3 post, September 12, 2023, 2.5 weeks after the last update. There is another chaotic update about my large family, and I think it's time, considering what has happened in the past 2 weeks. After my sisters came to my house, my parents told me that they were no longer managing the vacation house. It sounds like the sisters have been pressuring them to let them use this place again. Basically, my parents handed over the responsibility of this place to me and told me that it's my problem from now on. Until now, they have been keeping track of who will use it, when to use it, and taking care of routine maintenance, replacing worn items, and so on. Anyway, they decided they didn't want to be involved in this anymore, and although I don't blame them, I feel disappointed because this place was supposed to be a place for them to enjoy and hang out, and they use it regularly. I also didn't mind them letting my sisters and their families use it because I really always thought it was my parents' right, although technically I own it, but now my parents will be in a state where they can't use it without my participation, which changes the whole dynamic of this place. I have taken several steps to protect this place. I have mentioned that I locked the main gate, which has a heavy chain and the best lock I could find. I also reset all the door keypads and created all new codes. The security cameras were installed yesterday, which are actually very cool because the installer convinced me to put a high-resolution camera that can overlook the entire valley. The system cost me more than I expected, but the peace of mind is worth it. The installer also placed signs on the property indicating that the place is under video surveillance. I also installed a heavy-duty lock for the water valve. I hope to God I don't lose the keys because if I do, trying to remove it will be a very tricky problem. I haven't told anyone yet, except my wife, that the water is locked and only we have the keys. Last week, I received calls from both husbands at the office, trying to persuade me to let them use the house as usual. The older one went up with some friends for a guy's party, but couldn't get in because the main gate was locked. He was very angry and embarrassed not to be able to get in. I'm sure he would break the lock if he could. In his call, he switched back and forth between forcing and being a victim. At one point, he threatened to tear the damn gate off the ground. He also admitted that they had been renting it out to some friends and they needed the money. I'm ruining their business, and I should refund their guests' money. I told both of them that they can't use this place and don't ask again. Anyway, I'm considering selling the vacation house. My wife and I won't use it enough to justify keeping it, and there won't be any family gatherings there soon. I mentioned selling it to my parents, and their reaction was basically up to me. By selling it, I will make twice as much money as when I bought it. The place consists of 3 plots with great views, located at the end of a private road. But I will wait a while before selling. Doing it now would be an emotional decision. My sisters and I are not talking now, and I have no plans to take the initiative to contact them. I don't know what their relationship with my parents is, and I don't want to know. But the good thing is that we spent an evening with my parents last week, went to a new restaurant, and it was great. No one mentioned this mess. Mom updated us on the nieces and nephews, and she is spending time with them at their house. I'm sorry this update is not full of laughter or victory, but that's life. Update the post, October 16, 2023, 1 month later. Some people asked for an update, here it is. I hired someone to manage the vacation house. He lives in that area, takes care of his parents, and manages a considerable number of properties. Some of them are vacation rentals, some are weekend places like ours. He can access my camera videos and checks the physical condition every 2 weeks or so. I think he may have the best job in the mountains. He gets paid to drive around with his dog, walk around the properties, and hang out on people's decks when they are willing. He also has a camera video from a house near the start of the private road that takes a still shot whenever a vehicle passes by. For $450 a month, he also does basic maintenance and repairs on an hourly basis. He is friends with all the deputies, which gives me a lot of peace of mind. He sends out 1 or 2 photos of his walks to everyone once or twice a week. I have to boast about my parents. I got all this from them at dinner tonight. They were under pressure from my sisters to open the vacation house for everyone to use for Thanksgiving. Spending Thanksgiving there has become a family tradition, but not for my wife and me. We went there once a few years ago. My dad refused to bother me because he knew I would say no. They came up with a plan that I think is great, announcing that they are organizing a Thanksgiving gathering, and if everyone shares the cost in advance, they will rent an Airbnb in the mountains, otherwise they will host Thanksgiving at their place or one of the sisters' places. This caused a dispute among the sisters because the middle sister was happy to do the Airbnb, but the eldest one had no money. The deadline for the commitment to the Airbnb has passed, and it looks like Thanksgiving will be held at my parents' house, and we will not be there anyway. My parents asked me not to sell this place for now. They decided they still want to use it occasionally, but they want to wait until my sisters have accepted the new normal, and of course, if everyone can get together again, they might enjoy it. But it won't happen. I would rather sell it and move on, but I can keep it if my parents use it occasionally, plus it will be worth more in the future. My wife and I have no contact with my sisters and their husbands, and the sisters have called from new numbers, insisting on meeting with me for the sake of our parents to resolve how to let everyone use the family vacation house. They also called my wife. I'm glad I've made it a habit not to answer numbers I don't recognize. I really don't know if they are paranoid or think they can bully me into letting them in again. I don't care much. My parents told me that the eldest sister and her husband are getting rid of their SUV and big truck leases and are selling their jet skis and some other things. They never needed these things, and it will be very difficult for her. She loves to show off and won't like being seen driving old, small, cheap cars. My brother-in-law's identity is very much tied to his truck, and he even has a small tattoo of the truck company logo, which, frankly, is one of the reasons I never got along with him. Some people suggested that I turn the vacation house into an Airbnb, and I'm not planning to do that in the near future. I know it would make money, but it would cause incredible drama in the family and put pressure on my parents. They don't need that. In addition, removing my parents' personal items from there would be troublesome, as they have nowhere to go, and it would wear down the place, which I believe would cost me some time, even if I would use a manager to do it. It's not worth it for me. Update Post 5, November 27, 2023, 1.5 months later. I wrote most of this yesterday, but decided to wait until I was less nervous to post it. Waiting was useless, I'm still nervous. So many things have happened, it's hard to write coherently. I really didn't expect this to happen. Short version, my brothers-in-law broke into my vacation house and got arrested. They were charged with illegal entry, property damage, and threatening communication, all Class 1 misdemeanors. I refused to drop the charges. If I could pay for the damage they caused in full, I might do it. They were still in jail until Saturday night. I think they are out now. Things have at least calmed down. I haven't seen or heard from my sisters for over 6 weeks, as far as I'm concerned. My parents spent a week at the house and had a great time. David, the property manager I hired, is doing well. He did some repairs I asked him to do, and I gave him a list of things he's going to handle. He usually sends 1 or 2 photos of wildlife or sunsets to his clients every week, which kind of makes me want to go there. The day after Thanksgiving, my bills went to my vacation house. They used an angle grinder to cut the chain on the driveway gate and damaged the gate in the process. They tried to enter through the front door, damaged the lock housing, and scratched the door badly. They finally got in through a utility floor door and an internal locked door. They also broke into the barn for some reason. When they were leaving through the front door, they were stopped by the sheriff's deputies. David got a notification from the camera system and saw what happened, so he called the sheriff's department. According to David, the Bills tried to get away with it, but the deputies didn't buy it. Breaking into an empty house there is a pretty serious thing. Usually, it's drug addicts breaking into houses and stealing everything. When the Bills were arrested, they were very panicked and said they were going to beat me up and so on. It's not smart to say that in front of the police. David and the sheriff's office tried to call my wife and me to see what we wanted to do, but we were with her parents all day and left our phones in the car so that we could be on vacation mode. So they charged the Bills with all the crimes, which is exactly what I would have asked them to do. The Bills called their wives from jail, and of course, they were very panicked. They tried to call my parents and me, they were blocked, tried to find a lawyer to arrange bail. Considering it's a rural area and it's a holiday weekend, it's not easy. The eldest sister has no cash, her cards are all maxed out, so if they bail out, my middle sister will have to pay for both husbands. I knew they were still in jail until Saturday afternoon. We didn't check our phones until Friday night on the way back from our in-laws. There were many calls and messages from my mom, dad, David, and the sheriff's department. It ruined a great day. I was in a good mood until I checked my phone. My wife read the texts and listened to the voicemails, and she read them to me. When we got home, I knew what had happened. I tried to activate my brain thinking mode, but it failed. I was very angry. I called the sheriff's department at the end of Friday and told them there was no misunderstanding, the Bills absolutely had no right to be on my property, and I wanted to hold them accountable. I didn't return my parents' call and hardly slept. I waited until Saturday afternoon to call my parents. They were both very upset. My mom especially. My sisters have been pressuring them to tell me that I should tell the police it's all a mistake and I want to drop the charges. I flatly refused, telling them I can't do that until I've spoken to a lawyer and until I've been fully compensated for fixing everything. 100% my mom was crying very sadly at the end of the call, which of course made me feel bad. My dad suggested it's time to start over, but also said he thought they needed to pay for the damage. I haven't been to the property yet. I can't do anything, I might go crazy when I see the damage in person. The photos are already bad. I hope to go tomorrow or Wednesday, but my job is not something I can leave at will for non-emergency situations. I have already left messages for 2 lawyer friends, asking them to recommend the right lawyer to hold my sisters and the Bills accountable. I don't know what I can do, but I hope to get a restraining order. I have all the texts they sent me, which might help. I am strongly considering suing them for the money they earned by renting out the property. I don't care about the cash, but it will make them as miserable as possible. So far, the gloves have definitely come off. Some additional notes. 1. One of the Bills didn't know I had hired someone to look after things, or that there are now cameras there. My parents knew, but didn't tell them because they knew it would just give my sisters a reason to create drama there. 2. My wife is now completely fed up. I don't blame her. She has been patient, but it's at the end of her rope and she let me know it without hesitation. She told me that how to deal with this issue is up to me, but she thinks they all need a harsh lesson. 3. The older Bill may not face any consequences at work for this, but the middle one has a security clearance, so he might. I hope this will motivate him to pay for the damages immediately. 4. The caretaker David has an interesting background. I knew he was friends with some deputies and thought it was because they were all locals. I was wrong. He was a police officer in a big city for many years and was shot on duty, after which he decided to resign and move to where his parents retired. He has some PTSD from it. His dog is a certified service animal and is usually with him. I know law enforcement tends to stick together, and I guess that's why they became his friend group. 5. I don't want to see or talk to these jerks for the rest of my life. I know this conflicts directly with my overwhelming urge to make their lives as miserable as possible. Related comments. Many people have said that I should have been tough from the beginning, and I avoided it because it would put pressure on my parents, and I hate this drama, but to hell with it, they have pressure now. My wife has basically dropped out of anything related to this and doesn't want to hear about it for a while, saying it's my responsibility. She hasn't been involved since then, but I guess she won't be involved in the future, except for listening to me vent. Edited. Regarding why they broke in, I think they planned to use it for a family vacation and rent it out again. According to David, the property manager, it is now deer season and will be until the end of the year. I know the Bills have used it as a base camp for large group hunting weeks in the past. It can accommodate quite a few people, so an event with friends might bring them thousands of dollars. I guess this would explain why they also broke into the barn. I bought a 6-seater mule a few years ago, which they won't use. I don't think they wanted to damage the place. It means a lot to my dad, and they all like him very much. Update post 6, December 2, 2023, 5 days later, Saturday. I didn't expect to post again so soon, but a lot has happened in the past 2 days. Short version, I think this issue has turned a corner. On Thursday afternoon, I received an express envelope at the office with 2 signed letters from my brothers-in-law and a $5,000 cash check. In the letters, they made what I believe to be a very sincere apology. They admitted to breaking in, acknowledged that it was wrong, and said that the $5,000 was for damages, and if the cost exceeded this amount, they would pay more. They also said that they would stay away from the vacation house unless my wife and I specifically invited them. They also asked me to drop the charges as soon as possible because both of them might lose their jobs and said they were willing to sign any necessary documents to make it happen. There were other reconciliatory things in the letter, but that's the main point. It was a shock, and it was obviously a 180-degree turn from their past behavior. I have an appointment with a lawyer to see if I can sue my Bills for damages and try to get a restraining order. I called him and told him what I just received, and he agreed to meet with me later in the day instead of next week. He told me not to deposit the check. We met for about 2 hours, and he ultimately suggested that my wife and I reach a settlement and mutual release agreement with the 4 of them, sisters and Bills. He said that if we pursued them through litigation, we would almost certainly win, but it could take 2 years or more. There would be a considerable upfront attorney fee, and we might never see any money. He also said that even if we don't let them off the hook, we can keep the $5,000. He is drafting the agreement, and it will be ready on Monday. The agreement will include what is essentially a civil equivalent of a restraining order. I have asked my property manager to give me an estimate to fix the damage as soon as possible. After the meeting, I called him and asked him to give me an estimate as close as possible as soon as he could. I got it on Friday, and he thinks it will cost about $4,000 to fix everything. Most of it is the cost of the front door. On Friday, my lawyer contacted each Bill and told them what we were proposing and suggested they find their own lawyers. They all agreed. The middle Bill told them that they could pay for damages or attorney fees, but not both. They think there will be no difference in the lawyers because they really have no defense for what they did. His biggest concern is whether the charges can be dropped. As far as I know, they are willing to do anything, sign anything, to make this go away. My lawyer also called the district attorney's office on Friday to discuss dropping the charges. He got the name of the prosecutor and left a message, but he hasn't spoken with them yet. He thinks they will drop the charges because the Bills are paying and they have no prior records. But he is not a criminal lawyer. He also said that I should be prepared to go there in person on Monday or Tuesday and tell the prosecutor that I want everything to be dropped. He also suggested that I continue to have no contact with the sisters and Bills for the next 6 months, which is very important for future interactions with them to follow the terms of the agreement. I guess the Bills changed their minds because they have realized what is at stake for them. How much it will cost them in attorney fees, fines, etc. There is also a very slim chance that they could go to jail for up to 120 days, as I mentioned, one of them has a security clearance for work, which could be at risk. So this is their Hail Mary pass to maintain their normal life. It's not a perfect ending, but at least it will free me from the legal and financial dilemmas of the past few months. I suspect I will never have a civilized relationship with any of them again, and that's fine. What I want most is to end this now and move on with my life, never speaking to any of them again. I'm tired of all this. My wife feels the same way. A minor issue, but getting a written apology was a strangely important moment for me. I didn't expect it, but it obviously meant a lot to me. Money doesn't feel particularly important at this moment. I will of course accept it. I am also quite sure that my middle sister and her husband came up with the money. The cash check is from the credit union of the company he works for. Once things are signed, I plan to update once more, possibly just an edit to this post. I apologize for writing these posts at such length. Writing these posts has helped me process my thoughts, and the feedback has really been helpful. I am truly grateful for everyone's comments, insights, and support. I really hope you never have to go through such foolishness. Related comments: I was crying with relief when I finally got home on Thursday night, thinking this might all be over. I won't discuss this settlement with my parents until everyone has signed. My sisters and Bills can if they want, but I don't intend to. It's between me and them. The final update, December 7, 2023, 5 days later, Tuesday morning, I met with my lawyer to review the agreement, made some minor changes, and he sent it to my sisters and brothers-in-law. It includes a requirement for them to pay about $3,000 for my attorney fees. They were unhappy with this and tried to negotiate, but he told them to either accept it as is or there would be no deal at all, and we would continue to sue them for the money they made from renting the place, the wear and tear from renting, the repair costs from their break-in, emotional distress, lost income from dealing with this, attorney fees, and so on. The short version is that they came in and signed. I wasn't there. I was told it was a rather tense environment, with the middle bill seemingly taking control of the situation, telling my sisters to shut up at one point, or else he would walk away from the whole thing and make a separate agreement with us, and the rest could go to hell. They also offered another $2,500 cash check, claiming it was all they had. This is close enough, and we will accept it as the final payment. The lawyer also told me that everyone was very cold and rude to each other, but they were able to keep their cool enough to sign and leave without causing too much of a scene. I drove to the vacation house yesterday morning to see the damage and met with the district attorney's office. Seeing the damage made my blood boil. It was so senseless. I was so angry that I was ready to cover the cost of repairs and do everything I could to ruin their lives. I tried to walk away, but I completely failed. In the end, I called a good friend who was willing to spend over an hour on the phone with me, letting me vent. He eventually got me to refocus on the bigger picture, to let all this go and move on with my life. Honestly, I'm still not sure this is what I want to do, but I calmed down, ate some food, and felt much better after lunch. I went to the prosecutor's office without an appointment and had to wait for a while, but I finally met with the deputy prosecutor in charge of the case. The short version is that since I don't want to press charges, and the Bills have paid for the damages, they are willing to drop all charges except for illegal entry, which will be a Class 2 misdemeanor in this case. The Bills will have to plead guilty to any fines set by the judge. I was also told that if they fight the charge of illegal entry, or even fart in public, it would be very bad for them. This helps because the Bills did not resist arrest. If they had, no charges would be dropped. I also went to the sheriff's office to thank them for catching them so quickly and doing everything. I wanted to personally thank the deputy, but I only spoke with the dispatcher. I tried to contact David, the property manager, but I couldn't find him. Some notes: the agreement includes a no-contact clause, which basically means that if any of them appear where my wife or I am, or vice versa, the last person to arrive must leave immediately. No contact is allowed unless through a lawyer or other mutually agreed upon third party. They can keep any proceeds they made from renting the vacation house. My main concession, unless I have tax consequences, is that they will be responsible, and we release each other from all other liabilities so far. There is more, but these are the main points. My wife and I will sign the agreement later today. After that, I can't talk about most of it, but I can talk about it. I think this is my last update on all these foolish things, but I will reply to comments as much as possible. As I said, posting all this and reading everyone's thoughts and responses was really helpful, and it may have been key to my ability to handle this issue in a relatively healthy way. Thanks again to everyone. Related comments: I found it hard not to retaliate, but now I'm glad I didn't. If they cause more drama in the future, I might regret it, but if they abide by the agreement, it won't happen. The family dynamics, as you said, have been completely destroyed. I only told my parents that we were trying to resolve the issue, no more. They may or may not accept the direction things have taken, but I have to do what's best for me and my wife. I guess my sisters told them a very one-sided story. This is just another pile of manure I have to wade through. Actually, the agreement is more of a formalization of the past few months' events. I know this is not how my parents hoped things would go, but I am satisfied. Have your sisters exhibited this level of entitlement before? Not really, at least not to me. We were fine before, not very close, but not enemies. In retrospect, when I bought the loft at 25, they started to resent me. At that time, neither of them owned a house, but both had met their future husbands. They definitely didn't like that I got a place before them. When I met my wife, things got worse, and they didn't like that she was from a wealthy family, especially since I was doing well at the time. They accused me of being an elitist, and so on. When we got married, I moved into my wife's apartment because it was close to her internship site, and I sold the loft. Our wedding was splendid but reasonable, but the sisters were absolutely envious of it. After that, they and their husbands became quite trivial, and we started to minimize contact with them. The profit from selling the loft, thriftiness, and having no mortgage allowed me to finance my parents' vacation home. My parents were fine with hiding the fact that I owned it instead of them because they knew my sisters would make a big deal out of it and say I was using my wife's money. I wasn't. Most of our finances are separate, although there was indeed some help, and I had no mortgage until these messes started. In fact, I think we were generally okay. Our daily lives are very different, and I can't pretend to like being with them for more than half a day, but I thought they didn't hate me. I knew my two sisters had become quite spoiled and entitled, but that wasn't my concern, and I didn't have any real conflicts with my brothers-in-law, just hardly anything in common with them. God, I guess this is a long-winded way of saying I had no idea they were all like this. My last thought is that my current little fantasy is that I will never hear from them again.